What is up, Houston, Texas fans? Welcome to the Bull Bash, a podcast of the Houston, Texas fan. I'm your host, Mellow Mike. Thank you for joining us here on the show today. If you can, please just go ahead, take a moment of your time, give me a like, subscribe, leave a comment, and your thoughts on what you think about the video. Today, we're going to talk about a what-if scenario. Could the Texans turn out potentially not one, two, but three 1,000-yard receivers? Last season, this was probably one of the most explosive passing offenses in the National Football League. The Texans ranked among the top 5 when it comes to plays of 20 yards or more. They were second in the National Football League in yards per completion. They averaged the most yards passing per game. C.J. Stroud had the best touchdown to interception ratio among anybody. And he was one of the best deep ball passers in the National Football League last season. With that said, we're going to take a look here at some history. 1980, the San Diego Chargers, led by Dan Fouts, had 3 1,000-yard receivers, the first time it had ever happened. And Dan Fouts was NFL passing leader until Dan Marino eclipsed him going into the 90s. And the second time it happened was 1989. Mark Rippon, Ricky Sanders, Gary Clark, Art Monk. Yeah, those guys were pretty damn explosive there. 1995, the third time it happened, an unlikely source, the Atlanta Falcons, Jeff George, Bert Emanuel, Terrence Mathis, and Eric Metcalf, who's a running back, wide receiver, kick return specialist, do it all type of back. Kind of surprising on that one there. 2004, the Indianapolis Colts. Peyton Manning, of course, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, and Brandon Stokely. Not surprising that one there. And the last time it happened, 2008, Larry Fitzgerald, Steve Breaston, and Anquan Bolden receiving passes from Kurt Warner. Of course, the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers that year. So there's 5 times that this has happened in NFL history. And if anything, C.J. Stroud has shown us throughout his rookie season that the history books are just waiting right there for somebody to come along and put their stamp on them. You just got to have the drive, motivation, and inclination to go out there and do it. And I think C.J. Stroud has shown us that. Now, this Texans passing offense is primed for a breakout season, especially if things come together the way that we hope that they will. We get a running game from the combination of Joe Mixon, Jawar Jordan, and Dameon Pierce. That offensive line manages to keep a starting 5 healthy and get some gel and chemistry going throughout that season. It was a unit that allowed 44 sacks. It was kind of mid-range in the NFL. And if those guys stay healthy, they could definitely improve on that. And then the receiving core at times last season was always missing, one of the receivers, whether it was Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Noah Brown, Robert Woods. There were guys, certain games throughout the entire season that were missing, and they weren't really on the field together. And Texans receivers finished second in the National Football League to only the Kansas City Chiefs in drop passes. Not a stat that you really want to brag about right there. But I think with the Texans being a little bit more top heavy at wide receiver this year, those drops are going to go down. The potential for yards per catch is going to go up just due to the quality targets that the Texans have. Defensive coordinators are going to have nightmares as to which receiver they want to double cover. And a lot of speculation here. Stephon Diggs has to get his touches, otherwise he's going to become unhappy like he did in Minnesota and Buffalo. If he's winning, that's going to take care of itself. I don't really see him being an issue on a 1-year deal. I think there is room at a table for all 3 of these guys to sit there and get their fair share. I've just pointed out that history has shown us that, and it's right there. It's set up. I mean, the Texans this season, if everything plans out the way that I just stated, CJ Stroud could have an encore performance of his rookie year and get even better. I mean, what's to stop him? I don't believe what people say that he's going to hit that sophomore slump. It's not going to happen. He's a generational quarterback. If you watch the game, you see it. And these three wide receivers, all of these guys could potentially be a top wide receiver one. I mean, Tank Dell before his injury was primed to have 1,100 yards. Nico Collins had 1,300 yards. Stephon Diggs last year had over 1,000 yards. And now all three of those guys on the field at the same time with a more confident and polished C.J. Stroud, potentially a running game. Bobby Slowick with some more experience under his belt as a play caller. And a defense that could potentially turn out a lot more 3-and-outs and get after the quarterback more and cause a lot more turnovers, giving more opportunities back to the offense. I would not be surprised if there were some games that, the Texans turn around and it turned out a 50 burger. I mean, the potential is all there. These guys playing together, they've been working together in the offseason. We saw Tank and Stephon Diggs working with CJ, getting the chemistry going. Nico Collins is, he's there at OTAs. He's putting the work in. You see him. He's still looking as explosive as he did at the end of last year, especially in that Browns game where he just came out and absolutely dominated. I don't see any drop-off from any of these guys going into the season from what I've seen thus far. So I don't believe that it's going to happen. The Texans are going to pick up where they left off. They're going to improve. They're going to get better. They're going to be somebody that is going to have to be contended with. The question that we're going to have to ask is, can they overcome the likes of the elite of the AFC? Can they get past Baltimore? We're going to find that out. Can we go head-to-head with Kansas City? We're going to find that out during the regular season as well. With the coaching that this team has, the attention to detail that Bobby Slowick has, their ability to carve out roles and put players in positions to do what they do best, listen to players, make changes in game, as we saw. We saw C.J. Stroud and them talk about it. I believe it was a touchdown pass to Dalton Schultz, where he took an out route and turned it up the field after something he saw, and they communicated this with Slowick, and Slowick told him okay, and C.J. Stroud just hit Dalton over the top for the touchdown pass. I don't think there's any problems here. I think they'd do what they do best. They'd create a role for Stephon Diggs to thrive in, along with Tank and Nico. And I think these guys are going to do some damage. It's going to be a rotational thing, just like we saw last season. You're going to have one guy's going to have a hot game here, one guy's going to have a hot game there. But man, if all these guys were able to get on the same page at the same time, there is absolutely nothing scarier in the National Football League than a quarterback who's got a buffet table of weapons in a skill set position, and he's a guy that you got to throw the kitchen sink at him to stop him. You got to get lucky to come up with some stops in the game, because he's a guy that somehow always finds the open guy. He's a guy that is able to progress. He knows what the defense is doing. He knows where to go with the football. He knows where to throw with the football so that only his guys can get it. This is going to be an exciting season. So let me know what you think. Is it possible that the Houston Texans could get 3 1,000-yard receivers this year? Thank you for joining me, and let me know in the comments.